Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the Live Studios in Hythe, Kent, Southeast England, just not far from the English Channel. I'm getting back into slowly getting back into my routine, and things are going very well. I'm still a little debilitated from that fall I had, but I'm healing, and things are going on. But the main thing is that we're very happy to be able to read this Brhad Bhagavatamrta out loud to all of you. So before we do, we're going to recite the Shrimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, written by Srila Sanatana Goswami, glorious description of the Shrimad Bhagavatam, 5 verses that encapsulate the glories of the Shrimad Bhagavatam. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths. You are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Shrimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwando Ditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Shrimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshak Shadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Mat Sangin Mad Guru Man Mahadana Man Nistadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin atini chochata kada hanamunchakadachin mam premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we've reached second chapter of the second part of Brhad Bhagavatamrta. And Gopakumara is continuing his journey of being spiritually elevated and also educated at the same time. Such a special situation. Now he's on his way to Tapoloka. Because when he was in Mahaloka, Sanat Kumara came and everybody started bowing down to him. And he was wondering, who is this person? Because he still doesn't know about all the details of Vedic knowledge. So when he was described to him, who he was and where he lived, and then he immediately wanted to go there and see the Lord of the universe and the way they're worshiping. This is the whole plot. He's looking for the higher places to come to where he actually belongs in the end. Madan Gopal, the source of all other incarnations of Krishna. So we're starting with text 76. He's just coming into Tapoloka, writing on his mantra. There, I saw the same Sanat Kumara and the blessed Sanaka, Sanandana, and the fourth brother, Sanatana. Text 77. The residents of Tapoloka, who appeared similar to the Kumaras, were honoring the four brothers. The Kumaras were enjoying among themselves a long discussion, incomprehensible to persons like me. Commentary. The other residents of Tapoloka are also worshipable, simply because they resemble, in bodily appearance, as well as character, the four Kumaras, who were directly empowered avatars of the Supreme Lord. When Gopakumar first saw these four brothers, they were elaborately discussing among themselves matters such as those narrated in chapter 87 of Srimad Bhagavatam's 10th canto, Prayers by the Personified Vedas. Gopakumar understood little of what they were talking about because he was uneducated about liberation and devotional service. Text 78. Though they did not have the distinguishing attributes of God, from seeing those brothers on Tapoloka, I felt an intense, spontaneous joy. Commentary. Gopakumar usually derived his happiness only from seeing the Lord of the universe, but he was delighted to see the Kumaras because of their intimate connection with the Lord, even though they did not have four arms like Lord Vishnu or display his infinite powers. Because of the greatness of Tapoloka, seeing Sanat Kumara and his brothers there was more blissful for Gopakumar than seeing Sanat on Mahaloka. In general, a situation is glorious when the place and time are glorious, as well as the persons involved. Text 79. When they went off to their respective places to absorb themselves in meditation, I started wandering, searching as always for the Lord of the universe. Commentary. When the assembly ended, the Kumaras and their associates vanished from the spot and returned to their individual places of meditation. Gopakumar, left to himself, turned his mind to his favorite topic, the Lord of the universe. He conjectured that since the Lord was visible on Swargaloka and Maharloka, the Lord must be visible here as well. With that idea in mind, Gopakumar began searching. Why didn't he just ask someone where to find the Lord? He had no time to ask anything, because at first the four Kumaras had been receiving the worship of a large crowd of sages, and immediately afterwards everyone went back into trance. Text 80. Not seeing him anywhere, I tried to inquire of the great sages, but as I stood before them, offering prayers and obeisances, they did not even look at me. Text 81. Virtually everyone there was fixed in samadhi. They were all self-satisfied, lifelong celibates, full in achievement of all desires, and served by mystic perfections. Commentary. Occasionally, the residents of Tapoloka have philosophical meetings or worship of the Supreme, but otherwise they remain externally disengaged. Nothing in the outside world attracts them. Text 82. This time, my constant desire to see the Supreme Lord was ungratified, and indeed, by the influence of the company of the sages, it seemed to dwindle almost to nil. Text 83. Nonetheless, I stayed there for some time, attracted by the display of great power. Out of respect for my Guru's order, and because I had seen how effective my mantra was, I kept on chanting. Commentary. The atmosphere of Tapoloka weakened Gopakumar's resolve to see the Lord, but still he persevered in chanting his japa. His Guru had ordered him never to stop chanting, and Gopakumar did not want to be ungrateful by disobeying. Text 84. Thanks to the peaceful bliss in my heart that the nature of that place inspired, I chanted my mantra even more attentively than before. Thus my desire to see the Lord actually increased. Commentary. At first, the refined atmosphere of Tapoloka seemed to affect Gopakumara negatively. The pervasive mood of self-satisfaction seemed to reduce his desire to have the company of the Supreme Lord. But that same peace of mind, characteristic of Tapoloka, gradually helped him improve his chanting, and then the mantra exerted its own influence. As ghee poured on a fire seems momentarily to extinguish the fire, but then gives it new life, the atmosphere of Tapoloka only briefly decreased Gopakumar's desire to see the Lord of the universe. Text 85. The sage Pipalayana noticed that I eagerly desired to go to Nilachala to see Lord Jagannath, who lives there always resplendent. The sage then spoke to me. Commentary. The thought of returning to Jagannath Puri kept resurfacing in Gopakumar's heart, first in Svarga, then on Mahaloka, and now here on Tapoloka. For Lord Jagannath did not manifest himself on the planets of the demigods and sages. Pipalayana Rishi, the middle son of 9 self-realized sons of Lord Rishabhadev, observed Gopakumar wandering aimlessly, a sad, discouraged look on his face. Sri Pipalayana was practically omniscient, so he could easily understand the symptoms of Gopakumar's distraction. Text 86. Sri Pipalayana said, "Why do you want to leave this exalted place and go somewhere else? And why are you wandering around just to see the Supreme Lord with your eyes?" Commentary. In Pipalayana's opinion, the attempt to see the Supreme with one's eyes is useless, because the Lord is imperceptible to the material senses. Tapoloka is the planet of the greatest masters of yoga, who have completely controlled their sex urge, and the happiness enjoyed on Tapoloka is millions of times greater than that of the Prajapatis. Where else could Gopakumar want to go? Text 87. You should concentrate your mind in meditation. Then you will naturally see the Lord everywhere, within and without, as if always before you, in person. Commentary. Gopakumar might ask why he shouldn't go where he can directly see the Supreme Lord. But Pipalayana advises him instead to focus his attention within. When one fully cultivates meditation and reaches the stage of samadhi, the form of the Lord will manifest itself on its own strength, without one's separate endeavor. just as a person's face appears in a clean mirror. If Gopakumar follows the recommended yoga process, he will see the Supreme within and without, or at least seemingly so, sakshad eva, since in fact the Supreme cannot be viewed with the external eyes. There is no use in wandering around to find him. Text 88. Lord Vasudeva, the Supreme Soul, the embodiment of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, reveals himself in a thoroughly purified heart and nowhere else. Commentary. Sri Vasudeva, the presiding Lord of Consciousness, reveals himself only within Chitta, the heart, and the subtle seat of awareness, more subtle than the mind. That is mentioned by Lord Shiva in the 4th canto of Shrimad Bhagavatam 4.3.23. The state of pure consciousness, Krishna consciousness, in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead is revealed with no covering, is called Vasudeva. In that pure state, I always offer obeisances to him, the Supreme Godhead, known as Vasudeva, who is beyond the material senses. When one's consciousness is completely pure, meaning that it reflects nothing but the Supreme, then and only then does Lord Vasudeva reveal himself within the heart. Because he is the personal essence of the Supreme Truth, self-manifesting and indivisible, the external senses cannot perceive him. Text 89. Then, with nothing else going on in the mind, direct vision of Lord Hari with one's eyes takes place in the heart. Commentary. Here, Pipalayana anticipates Gopakumar's doubt. Is the meditation Pipalayana is describing as valid as direct perception with one's eyes? Pipalayana argues here that when one seems to be seeing Lord Hari with one's eyes, the source of that perception is actually one's heart. Only after the mind puts aside all other objects of perception does the Lord reveal himself in the heart. It is the mind that then performs the work of visualizing the Lord, although the perceiver does not consciously analyze, I am seeing the personality of Godhead, not with my eyes, but with my mind. According to Pipalayana, one's realization of the Supreme Lord becomes vividly concrete, susiddhati, by the power of the mind, not the eyes, which with their unlimited scope can neither comprehend the limbs of the Lord all at once, nor fully recognize his enchanting beauty. Text 90. When the mind is happy, all the senses are automatically happy. For the functions of the senses, speech, vision, hearing, and so on, are included within those of the mind. Commentary. Gopakumar might prefer the tangible pleasure of seeing with his eyes to the abstract enjoyment of the mind. But here, Pipalayana tells him that mental happiness extends not only to the eyes, but to all one's senses. Indeed, when the mind is distressed, the senses will surely not perceive happiness, because the senses will not even be invoked to contact their objects. The correlation between mental happiness and sensory happiness is natural and automatic, since all the senses are rooted in the mind. Just as the branches and leaves of a tree are nourished when the tree is watered at the root, when the mind is satisfied, so too are the senses, with no need for them to make separate efforts. Still, Gopakumar might say that what the mind does when one remembers falls short of what the organs like those of speech and vision do when one chants and sees. In other words, don't the senses, being many and varied, enjoy greater pleasure than the mind? Pipalayana answers that the functions of all the senses are included in the functions of the mind. Chanting the Lord's names, seeing His deity, and all other sensory activities are made possible by the action of the mind. And I just received a message from Abhaya Das Brahmachari. Hare Krishna. This is to enlighten everyone out there in cyberspace that he is in Serbia, and I have to write him a little message. It'll just take a second. Just hold the line here. All right. Text 91. Without the functions of the mind, the functions of all the senses are useless. For even if one acts, one's deeds will be as if never performed, because the self will be unable to perceive them. Commentary. The same point is re-argued here, but by negative logic. When the mind is inattentive, the senses may be active, but they cannot establish real contact with their objects. Each sense has its own proper object, form for the sense of sight, texture for touch, and so on. The purpose of the senses is achieved when they contact their objects and perception occurs. Perception, however, requires the active participation of two other agents as well, the mind and the soul. If the mind is not focused on a sense receiving input from an object, no sensation will reach the self, and no conscious perception will arise. This explanation from everyday life anyone can understand. By extension, Pipalayana argues one seeing the personality of Godhead is in reality the Lord's manifesting Himself through the functions of one's purified consciousness. It is not direct perception through the eyes, because the Supreme Lord stands outside the scope of the activity of the senses. Text 92. Text 92. If the Lord, out of compassion for His devotees, sometimes reveals Himself to their eyes, that vision actually occurs by the power of the mind. One only imagines the eyes to be the seers. Commentary. But didn't devotees like Dhruva and Prahlad see the Supreme Lord directly with their eyes? Aren't those devotees famous for having seen the Lord in person? Yes, the Lord made Himself visible to those great devotees out of fatherly affection to fulfill the purpose of their eyes. But in fact, Pipalayana says, the devotees beheld those revelations through pure consciousness, not through the physical eyes. Because the scope of our physical sight is narrow, with our eyes we are unable to perceive an object that has no limits. Why then are Dhruva, Prahlad, and others famous for having had the Lord's darshan? And why is he famous as Bhaktavatsala, he who shows affection for his devotees? It is because in each case, the devotee, the jiva soul, identifying with his own senses, presumes, I am seeing the Lord directly with my eyes. That those devotees thought that way is evidence that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was kind to them, and that the sense of sight fails to perceive what is beyond its scope does not mean that the eyes are utterly useless. Text 93. And even if by the power of his mercy he becomes visible to external eyes, the bliss of that arises from seeing him. And even if by the power of his mercy he becomes visible to external eyes, the bliss that arises from seeing him has its natural source in the heart. Commentary. But isn't the Supreme Lord, by his personal energies, free to do anything he wants? Yes, but miracles are for the ultimate benefit of the conscious soul rather than the soul's inert senses. The power of the Lord's compassion could indeed make the physical eyes able to perceive him, if he so desired. But the fruit of that perception, the pleasure felt from it, would still come from where pleasure, pain, and anxiety are always born, the mind. Text 94. That bliss later continues in the heart, even after that Lord is no longer visible to the eyes. Thus, the worthy receiver of that bliss is the mind alone. Commentary. After an audience with the Lord, when he is no longer visible to the eyes, the pleasure of having seen him lingers in the heart. Oh, with my own eyes I saw the personality of Godhead. I saw him right before me. That the ecstasy of seeing the Lord continues in the heart after the eyes can no longer perceive him indicates that the ecstasy resided only in the heart all along. Why then presume the eyes to be the seers? On the other hand, sight is one of the knowledge-acquiring senses. So why should it be unable to generate and sustain pleasure? The answer, according to self-realized authorities, is that the most suitable agent to receive the pleasure of seeing the Supreme Lord is the mind. The mind is analogous to the most reliable minister of a king, a minister who alone in the king's entourage can be entrusted with the care of a most precious object. Text 95. As much as the mind becomes peaceful, to that extent its pleasure grows. No external sense can feel such expanding pleasure. Commentary. It may be argued that the mind is limited in scope, like the other senses. That is true, but when the mind becomes cleared of contamination, the Lord, being satisfied, is prepared to bestow his full mercy. The soul's pure consciousness, reflected in the mind, is then able to sustain the image of the Supreme Lord. The external senses are unable to do this. Text 96. When the Lord expands his special mercy, one sees the Lord within by meditation, as if directly with the eyes. Thus we can understand from what happened to lotus-born Brahma. Commentary. Out of respect for the sage Pipalayana, we may theoretically accept that one derives more happiness from meditating on the Supreme than from trying to see Him with one's physical eyes. But isn't it also well known that by seeing the Lord directly, one gains the special happiness of receiving benedictions from Him, speaking with Him, and having other personal interactions? That may be true, the sage answers. But when the Lord is seen within, He mercifully provides all those same benefits. He reveals Himself within the heart so that He can give boons, speak with His devotee, touch him, and so on. He can do this from within the heart because He is the Almighty Lord, Prabhu, who has special energies that easily arrange for Him all these wonderful things. As a concrete historical example, Pipalayana cites the case of Lord Brahma. The epithet, lotus-born, Padmaja, implies that when Lord Brahma was born, he found himself sitting on a lotus. As described in the second canto of Shrimad Bhagavatam, Brahma, surrounded by the darkness of annihilation, did not know how to proceed in recreating the universe. A mysterious voice then told him to meditate, and when he did, the Supreme Lord revealed Himself and His abode. Very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, the personality of Godhead was pleased to manifest His personal abode, Vaikuntha, the supreme planet above all others. That transcendental abode of the Lord is adored by the self-realized persons freed from all miseries and all fear of illusory existence. Bhagavatam 2.9.9. In Vaikuntha, Brahma saw the personality of Godhead, Narayana. Brahma saw in the Vaikuntha planets the personality of Godhead, who is the Lord of the entire devotee community, the Lord of the goddess of fortune, the Lord of all sacrifices, and the Lord of the universe. The Lord was being served by His foremost immediate associates, His loving servitors like Nanda, Sunanda, Prabhala, and Arhana. He was leaning favorably towards them, His very sight intoxicating and attractive, His smiling face decorated with an enchanting reddish hue, and He appeared very much satisfied. He was dressed in yellow robes and wore earrings and a helmet on his head. He had 4 hands, and his chest was marked with the lines of the goddess of fortune. Bhagavatam 2.9, 15, and 16. Brahma not only saw the excuse me. Brahma not only saw the amazing form of the Lord, but also had an intimate, personal exchange with Him. Lord Brahma, thus seeing the personality of Godhead in His fullness, was overwhelmed with joy within his heart and in full transcendental love and ecstasy, his eyes filled with tears. He thus bowed down before the Lord. That is the way of the highest perfection for the living being. And the Lord, seeing Brahma present before him, accepted him as worthy to create the living beings, to be controlled as the Lord desired. Thus, being very much satisfied with Brahma, the Lord shook hands with him and, slightly smiling, addressed him. Bhagavatam 2.9, 18, and 19. When Lord Narayana spoke to Brahma in a way that encouraged him to ask a boon, Brahma asked for instructions on how to create the universe for the conditioned living entities, and the Lord responded by imparting to him the 4-verse encapsulation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Then Lord Narayana disappeared from Brahma's sight. After seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, seen in his transcendental form, instructed Brahmaji, the leader of the living entities, the Lord disappeared. Bhagavatam 2:9-38. As these passages clearly show, Brahma meditated on the Supreme Lord in his heart, and then the Lord mercifully appeared, offered him boons, spoke with him, and touched him. These events arose out of Brahma's inner meditation. The third canto gives a similar description. At the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete, he developed the required knowledge, and as a result, he could see the Supreme within himself, whom he could not see before, with the greatest endeavor. Brahma saw on the water a gigantic lotus-like white bedstead, the body of Sheshanaga, on which the Supreme Personality of Godhead was lying alone. The whole atmosphere was illuminated by the rays of the jewels bedecking the hood of Sheshanaga, dissipating all the darkness of those regions. Bhagavatam 3:8, 22, and 23. Lord Brahma, thus surcharged with the motive passion, became inclined to create, and after seeing the 5 causes of creation indicated by the Personality of Godhead, he offered respectful prayers on the path of the creative mentality. Bhagavatam 3:8-33. After Brahma offered his prayers, Lord Narayana responded, O Brahma, O depth of Vedic wisdom, be neither depressed nor anxious about undertaking the creation. What you are begging from me has already been granted. Bhagavatam 3:9-29. I am very much pleased by your description of me in terms of my transcendental qualities, which appear mundane to the mundaners. I grant you all benedictions in your desire to glorify the planets by your acts. Bhagavatam 3:9-39. Text 97. It is said that seeing the Lord in person gives joy to his devotees, but causes fear and other hard emotions for others, like Duryodhana and Kamsa. Commentary. Isn't seeing the Lord in person the most ecstatic form of his mercy? And isn't it the perfection of devotional meditation? Yes, but only for the Lord's surrendered devotees, not for his enemies. As the historical accounts of Scripture tell us, when demons saw him, they felt only troublesome emotions like anger, envy, remorse, and sorrow. Text 98 and 99. The beautiful, all opulent form of Lord Narayana, the concentrated essence of supreme bliss, refines the functions of all the senses. Yet demons like Madhu and Kaitaba, even after seeing the Lord in person, did not lose their evil disposition, distressing to all. And we'll do this purport. Commentary. Kamsa and Duryodhana were mentioned by name in the previous verse, and other enemies of the Supreme Lord were indicated by the word Adi, and so on. Here Kamsa and Duryodhana are left out, and instead the names of 2 other demons, Madhu and Kaitaba, are cited. As Gopakumar narrates his own history, he does not want to introduce the glories of Sri Krishna until his student is properly prepared to hear them. Therefore, he does not follow up the mention of Kamsa and Duryodhana with further details of Krishna's pastimes that will come later. In the ancient past, millions of years before Krishna's appearance, great demons like Madhu, Kaitaba, Maya, Taraka, and Kalanemi had ample opportunities to see the personality of Godhead in person and without obstruction. Yet those demons did not achieve bliss from seeing the Lord, and their wicked mentality never changed. They were duratmas, meaning that their intelligence, atma, remained always impure, either because they had no devotion for the Supreme Lord, or because by their demoniac nature, atma, they were inimical rivals to the Lord. The Lord's beauty is the concentrated essence of all divine ecstasy. Parananda Ganam. It is endowed with all splendor and opulence, Shrimad, and therefore by manifesting its charm, sweetness, and other unique characteristics, it gives pleasure to all the senses. Sarvendriya Gunanjanam. Sarvendriya Gunanjanam. His beauty also pleases the senses by encouraging them to indulge in transcendental gratification. Yet despite the all-attractive qualities of his beautiful form, demons continue to hate the Lord even after they see him. Gopakumar does not elaborate here on what Kamsa and Duryodhana felt when they saw Krishna, but we do have information about this from Srimad Bhagavatam and other sources. When Sri Nandanandana was present in the tournament arena in Mathura, his moon-like face increased the love of his dear devotees, headed by Nanda Maharaj, to the size of a vast ocean. But King Kamsa, although born in the same Yadu dynasty as the cowherds of Braja, did not become joyful when he saw Krishna in the arena. Rather, as his heart filled with fear, anger, and other painful emotions, it burned with agony. Again, in the assembly of the Kurus, when Sri Krishna's devotees like Vidura and Bhishma heard Krishna's nectarian words, they were delighted. But although Duryodhana and his friends of the Puru dynasty were all relatives of Krishna who talked and sat with him and had connections with him by marriage, they felt no pleasure from his presence. In fact, they were unable to give up their offensive hatred of Krishna's dear devotees. In the minds of those demons, there was a conflagration of anguish, kindled by perpetual anger, envy, pride, and hundreds of other faults. And not for an instant did that fire cease to burn. And that is 8 o'clock. And we'll stop here at text 100. Very interesting philosophical points being made here by the Pipalayana Rishi. Okay, as I said before in the beginning of this part, Gopakumar is getting his spiritual education. And not just from ordinary people. He's getting it from the best of the best in each one of the sectors, devotional sectors. Okay. Any reflections or?
Radhan Madan Mohan Buxtel. Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for your daily readings of Sri Brhad Bhagavatamrta, Brhad Bhagavatamrta, Maharaj.
That's it so far. So this is heady stuff. It's a little difficult to comment upon. I know it's very difficult because the Kumaras are the empowered, actually they are empowered incarnations of the Lord, empowered to teach and spread the teachings of the yoga system. That's their duty, that's what they do. And Srila Prabhupada in his purports, he explains these same things but in a very simple way. You know, the senses are made of material elements, and the material elements are inert. So the eyes cannot see spiritual energy. Therefore, what does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? Do you remember?
Give you divine vision.
Yes. SKD, Shyam Kishore, got the right answer the first time. Thus I give you divine eyes. You cannot see me with your eyes, your normal eyes. Thus I give you the divine eyes. So this is the point of the yogis in Tapoloka. They live on that plane where they're always associating with Krishna within their mind, and therefore whenever they look, they see him. They don't feel disconnected from Krishna at all. But still, it takes a spiritual body to directly perceive and play with the Lord and have one's relationship with the Lord directly, personally, physically. Not physically meaning materially, but physically meaning externally. Now we're going to hear, not before long, and I think the next chapter, a refutation of all these arguments. And these arguments aren't over yet, by the way. There's still more to come from the tapasvis in Tapoloka. But there will be a refutation of them by Vaikuntha Dutas. Very interesting. Okay, any comments, reflections? Okay.
Yes.
These heady topics, it takes time for people to key them into their keyboards.
From Yadutama Das.
Okay, Haribo Yadutama, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances and all glories to Prabhupada. So glad to make the live reading tonight. Could you please comment more on how we see Krishna with our purified heart? Is it different than seeing the Lord in the form of the deity or the holy names?
No, it's not different. It's absolutely not different. But at the same time, there's similarities. You can come into the deity room and you can see the form of the Lord. But guaranteed, you won't see as much as someone else who has pure devotion. Depending on your devotion, you will see more when you see the form of the Lord, even in the Archa Vigraha. So that comes right back to the argument of the Tapalokas, and that is, while you're in the material world, you don't really see the spiritual forms with your material eyes. But we will hear from the Vaikuntha Dutas later, you don't see them with your material mind either. You see them by purified eyes and purified mind, the spiritual senses and the spiritual mind. That's what it takes to do devotional service. That's the special mercy of Bhakti Yoga. It actually purifies the mind and it purifies the senses to be able to actually render devotional service and perceive the Lord.
Yes, from Rati Manjari. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Haribo Rati.
I found it indeed quite difficult to understand tonight's contents. While I was hearing while I was hearing it, I kept thinking whether Srila Sanatana Goswami wanted us to agree with the vision of sage Vipalayana or with Gopakumar, who always wants to see the Lord directly.
Well, there you have it. Because your mind is thinking something, it's hard to hear. What it means to hear with rapt attention, it means without the mind doing that. That's the whole point. So it's not easy to understand this philosophy of the tapasvis in Tapoloka. So Prabhupada explained them the same things, the same concepts, but in more simple terms. That you can't actually see the Lord, whether you're seeing Him with your eyes, and they say also the same thing. You can't see the form of the Lord with your eyes. You have to be given divine vision, and you get that divine vision by coming to pure consciousness. And the Lord responds to that within your heart, and then you can see. But Gopakumar is not on that level. He's in a different spiritual mood, first of all, and he's not on that level. And that's not going to satisfy him, because he has been given the benediction. He has a spiritual body already. So this is called Purva Paksha. These arguments that are given in Tapaloka are Purva Paksha that will be addressed later by the Vaikuntha Dutas. And I will not go into the details of this because it's already time for me to stop practically. And I have to communicate with Abhaya in Serbia because we have to purchase tickets for him to get back to Houston. So I don't have the time to get into it in detail. But believe me, when we get to the third chapter, we will hear the answers to your question done much nicer than I can do it. Hare Krishna. Something else?
Yeah, Ratimanjay said probably we need to hear everything step by step.
Yes. And again and again. Prabhupada said, if you don't understand, just keep hearing, and eventually you'll understand everything. Why? Because when you show Krishna that you're determined to hear about Him, that you're determined to understand, then eventually He will reveal the knowledge to you. That's the actual answer to the question. It requires Krishna's participation. It requires Krishna's mercy. It requires Krishna to reveal to you His form. It is not by the power of the senses or even of the mind. It's our consciousness. And Lord Chaitanya came to give that understanding without going through the intense spiritual disciplines of the yoga system. The devotees of Krishna, by rendering absorbed devotional service in pure consciousness, they get the benefit, all the benefits, even the benefits of being mystic yogis of Tapoloka. They get those benefits, the pure devotees. But they never show it, and they use it only to spread Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada was a classic example. How else could one person come to the Western world and influence so many people to become Krishna conscious? Unless there's mystic power. You have to be empowered by Krishna to do that. Okay, what else? I'm running out of time. Quick.
I think the last one, Ratimanjay. When I heard about the importance of the mind paying attention in order for it to register what the senses may be doing, it reminded me of the importance of paying attention while chanting, for it to have the desired effect of becoming Krishna conscious.
Exactly. That's the point of sankalpa. that we were talking about before. And it is what is empowering Gopakumar to be, now he's going to go beyond Tapaloka by the power of his mantra and the dedication he has to chanting it. And what was the word? What was the word? Do you remember? He didn't want to seem ungrateful. So out of gratitude, he kept chanting. So that's our sankalpa, to be intensely grateful and feel separation from the Lord. Because intense feelings of separation from the Lord are non-different from seeing Him face to face. But you can only perceive that by getting there yourself and experiencing it for yourself. You can't just think about it and understand it fully. Not possible. Intensify your desire to please Krishna, to find out who you are and what you're supposed to do to please Him in the best way possible. That's our sankalpa. Hare Krishna. Sri Brhad Bhagavatamrta. What?
Just last one from Ratimanjay. Tomorrow, in spite of a stormy forecast, we will again go on a national Harinam by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada.
Jai. There you have it. That's the way. That's the way. Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrta ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Brinda ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo. See you tomorrow night. Same place, same time, same topic. The creme de la creme. De la creme de la creme de la creme. De la creme de la creme de la creme de la creme of the Vedas. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow.